More mainland tourists came to the city than expected during the Golden Week. Labor Secretary comments on recent developments over the physical gym chain. And a look at the first 50 days of the Panda twins. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The mainland's Golden Week is nearing its end, today being the 5th day of the week-long National Day holiday. Over 860,000 mainlanders visited the city via different checkpoints in the past 5 days. Musin reports.
This Saturday afternoon, some eateries in the central area were packed with customers. A long queue formed outside this noodle restaurant. Many were mainland tourists who traveled to Hong Kong for 3 to 4 days.
我从新疆过来。
This man said he did not want to visit the city on National Day, knowing everywhere would be crowded. While this woman said she's in Hong Kong for a connecting flight and she wanted to try out the noodle place despite the long waiting time.
然后今天没想到过来人更多。
I came here early this year, but the shop was closed, she said. Some overseas tourists were also in the queue.
We're just in line for like 5 minutes right now, but I guess we have to wait like for more 30 minutes. We are planning to go to the Pick tram, and also yesterday we went to Symphony of Light, and also we went to Harbor City for shopping.
I found in the Google Map, and I know that many Korean people must visit here.
In Siberia, we don't wait in restaurant, but here we see this restaurant and we want to stay here. I don't know why.
While some tourists said hotel prices are expensive and rooms are small, they said it's still acceptable.
The government expected about 1.2 million mainlanders to travel to the city over the week-long National Day holiday. The tourism industry said the number of mainland tour groups coming to the SAR exceeded their expectations, with about 200 groups arriving daily during the National Day break. Tourism sector lawmaker Yu Pak-leung said the recent surge in the Hong Kong and China stock markets could be the reason behind the rising number of mainland visitors. News 9, TVB News.
A new investor has taken over the recently closed physical gym chain and has employed some 200 of the fitness company staff members. Secretary for Labor and Welfare Chris Sun said that the new contracts signed by former physical employees would not affect their ability to seek arrears for wages.
Some outlets of fitness gym chain Physical, which closed last month, were again taken over by a new investor, just after its Wan Chai branch reopened earlier under a new brand name Healthy. The new company, called Perfit, has employed some 200 former physical staff members. This, as Secretary for Labor and Welfare Chris Sun said the Labor Department received around 770 requests from former physical staff for assistance in seeking arrears for wages. Sun added the former physical employees' new contracts with Perfit will not affect their ability to retrieve outstanding wages. He stressed the wage arrears problem is solely between physical and their staff. Meanwhile, when asked about a recent incident in which imported laborers were suspected of being exploited, Sun noted authorities will deal with such illegal activities seriously. The Secretary for Labor and Welfare said authorities will try their best to assist the workers in returning to Hong Kong and seeking justice through the legal process.
Deputy Secretary for Justice Horace Cheung says Hong Kong judiciary professionals can benefit from the development of the Greater Bay Area. In April, the government released the action plan on the construction of rule of law for the region. Speaking on a radio program, Horace Cheung said about 400 local lawyers can now practice law across the GBA after obtaining their licenses. Cheung also said mainland authorities like the business mediation of Hong Kong. A tram was derailed in Western District on Hong Kong Island, forcing parts of the tram network to be temporarily suspended. At around 3 this afternoon, a tram was derailed while heading to Davis Street from Catchick Street. Technicians were at the scene for inspection, and the tram was lifted by a crane. Services between Kennedy Town and Davis Street were temporarily suspended. The accident's location has been undergoing road maintenance, where trams have to move slowly. Today marks the 50th day since the 2 baby panda twins were born. Ocean Park released videos documenting the growth of the beloved national treasures.
Born on the 15th of August, giant panda Ying Ying's 2 babies were just the size of a human palm and already wailing at the moment of birth. First-time mom Ying Ying could be seen licking and hugging her newborn twins. The 2 animals grew at a rapid pace under the care of Ocean Park. By day 20, the black fur became more apparent and the pair were visibly larger. The 2 twins managed to adjust their own body temperature after 1 month and already began to play and sleep with their mother. Ocean Park noted on social media that both pandas are eager to meet with the public. Speaking about the 2 giant pandas recently gifted by central authorities to Hong Kong, Anan and Ke, Secretary for Transport and Logistics Lam Sai-hung said a total of 90 people offered logistical support in the transportation of the 2 pandas to the city. He added Anan and Ke remained in special cages with a consistent temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. They were accompanied by 4 Sichuan and Ocean Park specialists throughout the flight. Lam further said the fresh bamboo eaten by the 2 national treasures were brought from Guangzhou every day at 10 in the morning.
Still ahead, more casualties in Lebanon as Israeli attacks continue. Donald Trump is returning to the campaign trail at the place where he was shot. And Chinese scientists conduct research on items from the far side of the moon. Welcome back. In the Middle East, Israel is continuing to attack Lebanon. An Israeli strike on a refugee camp in North Lebanon has killed Hamas official Saeed Atallah Ali and his family, the group said. The early morning strike came a day after another Israeli airstrike cut off a main highway linking Lebanon with Syria, leaving 2 huge craters on either side of the road. 9 Israeli soldiers have died in southern Lebanon, while 2 were killed by Hezbollah strikes on Israel. Nazvi Karim with more.
Baby Rita lies in her cradle in a crowded classroom with her mother Fatima and 5 other families in the coastal Lebanese city of Sidon. She's just 20 days old and any sound startles her. Rita and her mother endured relentless Israeli bombing in their home city of Qaqayat al-Jisr in southern Lebanon and on the 40-kilometer journey to Sidon. They are among 1.2 million Lebanese and Syrians displaced by Israeli military aggression in southern Lebanon and in the capital Beirut. Rita and Fatima at least had a relatively straightforward route out of the south. In the north, a major road connecting Lebanon to Syria was hit by Israeli airstrikes overnight near the Kiev-Masna border crossing, where tens of thousands have been fleeing. 2 massive craters means vehicles are unable to pass and people must make the trek on foot, carrying their belongings.
Syrian refugees in Lebanon and elsewhere in the region were telling us that they still had many concerns or what we call obstacles that is preventing them from taking the decision to return. And this did include safety and security, lack of livelihood, lack of housing, lack of basic services and access to these services.
And respite looks a long way off, with Israel intensifying strikes on Lebanon and Hezbollah firing rockets into northern Israel. Here, an Israeli attack helicopter is seen firing missiles into Lebanon, while its soldiers are on the ground. It was revealed on CNN earlier that Hezbollah had actually agreed to a ceasefire just days before the assassination of its leader Hassan Nasrallah. US President Joe Biden was asked if Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was stalling on an agreement to influence November's presidential election.
No administration has helped Israel more than I have. None. 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 And I think Bibi should remember that. And whether he's trying to influence the election, I don't know, but I'm not counting on that.
Meanwhile, the US and Israel are also discussing how to respond to Iran's missile barrage on Israel earlier this week. At a press conference in Beirut, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said his country favors a ceasefire agreement, but if Israel retaliates, Tehran will respond stronger than ever. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Several countries are continuing to evacuate their citizens from Lebanon amid intensifying Israeli airstrikes. A military plane carrying 97 South Korean nationals and their families left Lebanon and landed in Songnam today. According to South Korean Foreign Ministry, around 30 of its citizens remain in Lebanon, besides diplomats and embassy workers who are staying. The returnees say they could hear explosions at night and felt their houses shaking. A Dutch military transport plane carrying 185 people landed at an airbase in the southern city of Eindhoven. More than 100 of those on board were Dutch citizens, and the remainder were repatriated at the request of Belgium, Finland, and Ireland. Germany and Japan also evacuated hundreds of its citizens from Lebanon. Donald Trump is expected to return to where he was shot later. The former president will be in Butler County, Pennsylvania, for a rally exactly 12 weeks after surviving an assassination attempt. Kamala Harris is also on the campaign trail as she attacked Trump on labor policies. David Garrett reports.
Trump gear here. Butler is getting ready for the return of the former president. Get the merch, T-shirts, trademark baseball caps. A cardboard cutout is yours to own and cherish. Trump trainers are available. Trump was shot in the ear in an assassination attempt here on July 13th. He's returning to finish that speech. A man in the audience died. The shooter was killed by police. Trump supporters have travelled to see the man they want back in the White House.
Just millimeters away from being murdered last time he was here, and to come back and finish that job and talk to the American people, and I think it's breathtaking.
Trump warmed up for the weekend with a speech in front of mostly military personnel in North Carolina. A Vietnam veteran dedicated his Purple Heart accolade to Trump for surviving the shooting.
You got back up, and the first words out of your mouth was fight, fight, fight.
Trump thanked him and God.
And I got very lucky, and maybe it wasn't so much luck. Maybe there's something else, right? Maybe there's something else up there.
Earlier, Trump was briefed by Georgia's governor while campaigning in the state. The area felt the force of Hurricane Helene. Trump's been critical of the federal response, saying money that should be for victims has gone to support migrants. The Federal Emergency Management Agency spent record numbers of dollars on sheltering immigrants, but the government say the funds are from a separate program. Meanwhile, Democrat candidate Kamala Harris criticised Trump too. The US Vice President was in must-win Michigan as the union representing firefighters chose not to back either candidate. Most unions are behind Harris, who says another Trump presidency would be disastrous for blue-collar workers.
Tens of thousands of jobs in Michigan, and those losses started before the pandemic, making Donald Trump one of the biggest losers of manufacturing jobs in American history.
David Garrett, TVB News.
September 26th marked the 2-year anniversary of the explosions that damaged the Nord Stream gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea. The UN Security Council held a meeting to mark the incidents, which severely disrupted global energy supplies. Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said the Security Council has been unable to adopt any measures surrounding the explosion because of efforts by the West to obstruct the body's measures. The United Kingdom questioned the legitimacy of the meeting. It says Russia is consistently calling on the Council to vocally condemn attacks on critical national infrastructure, while at the same time targeting Ukraine's energy system. The U.S. has been accused of being behind the explosions. Andrew Curiel, the U.S. representative, denied the accusation and said there is no shred of evidence of U.S. involvement in the sabotage of the pipeline. China's envoy Geng Shuang urged an end to politicization of the probe and encouraged all parties to cooperate with Russia on the matter. One of the Amazon's main tributaries has dropped to the lowest level ever recorded as severe drought affects northern Brazil. The Negro River is at a depth of 12.5 meters when it should be over 20. The new low also marks the second year in a row the record has fallen. Experts are predicting it could drop further. The low water levels are putting strain on businesses that rely on boats to pass through. All major waterways in the Amazon basin are at critical levels. And in the Peruvian Amazon, an oil spill is spreading, impinging on the lives of indigenous communities. It is not clear how the slick started. The state-owned petroleum company has mobilized its emergency plan. Around 100 spills are recorded in Peru each year. China's Chang'e 6 mission had earlier collected soil samples from the far side of the moon. New research on the lunar soil is providing groundbreaking insights into lunar geology. Experts believe China is set to play a crucial role in humanity's quest to explore space. Sakur Erp has more.
At the Institute of Geology and Geophysics in Beijing, researchers were testing the viscosity of the lunar soil. They first poured samples into a funnel, removed the seal to check if the soil would drop. then gently pushed the soil through with a glass rod and captured its descent speed. The soil was also subject to laser heating, releasing gases from the moon for analysis. In June, the Chang'e mission made history by collecting 1,935.3 grams of lunar soil from the moon's far side. The soil is now being shared with international scientists for research. Recent findings show that the glass content from the moon's far side soil is higher than that on the near side, possibly a result of collisions with objects from space. Yang Wei, a researcher at the institute, warns that humanity should not take Earth's safety for granted. He emphasized that random impact events could strike our planet similar to the moon's past experience. To avoid contaminating lunar soil with air, moisture and dust from Earth, experiments must be conducted in special laboratory like this. For some of the advanced experiment will be conducted in the box behind me. It contains nitrogen gas to create an environment without water and oxygen. Aerospace academics believe the success of Chang'e 6 highlights China's growing capabilities in space exploration. Shi Peng, deputy dean of the School of Astronautics at Beihang University, said China plans to build infrastructure in Earth-Moon system to foster global collaboration. He adds that the next challenge lies in using space technologies to drive development across various fields. Zachary, TVB News, Beijing.
Haiti is reeling from armed gang violence that killed scores of innocent people in a small town. The UN Human Rights Office said at least 70 have died in the country's central region. Initial estimates put the number of those killed at 20 people, but activists and government officials have been gradually assessing areas of the town and discovering more bodies. It is one of the biggest massacres in Haiti's central region in recent years. Attacks of that kind have taken place in the capital of Port-au-Prince, 80% of which is controlled by gangs. And that's the news. Thanks for watching.